you hear me? Am I live? Here we go. Great. It's good to be back. I must be honest. When Ian asked me to come and speak here again, I really tried to sidestep the issue. I think the longer I'm in the wheelchair, the more I experience life as a quadriplegic, the less I want to talk about it. The more I go through life and I contemplate its difficulties and I contemplate its dynamicness and how complex life is, the less I want to talk about it, the less I feel that I've actually got the authority to talk about it. I realize that I'm walking my path, but so is everybody else in front of me. So who am I to stand here full-chested and say, this is how life works? Every time I think that I've just kind of figured it out and this is the answer, it's almost like the next day I get proven wrong. So I'm not very self-assured the way I'm sitting here in front of you. Life is too dynamic. Life is too complex. God's ways are so mysterious that I can't sit in front of you and say I figured it out. So please don't see me as a narcissist wanting to tell his story. I wanted to run away, and it's only your pastor's hard-headedness and perseverance that has gotten me here today. So when I drove in here this morning, I was quite pleased to see the development on your building. It looks great. I'm so pleased that it's wheelchair friendly. I want to tell you a joke, and I hope you see the dark humor in this. I've got a friend who's a real rough diamond, and he phones me one day and he says he's just been at a supermarket in the parking at the bottom, and he found a handicapped guy trying to park in an able-bodied parking space, and he gave him his mind. Thanks for considering the guys in the wheelchairs. I see there is no handicap parking outside, but I think you guys do that in faith. Hey? I'd like to tell you my story, and I know some of you have heard it, so I'm going to try to bring it in from maybe a little bit of a different angle. But 12 years ago, I was kind of at my apex in my career. I was a martial arts instructor, and I was teaching hand-to-hand combat to special forces and some other government agencies, and also had my own club. I was very pleased with my development, how things were going, and to teach special forces is kind of an accolade that's pretty much as high as you can get in South Africa. Things were really going well, and the next day we were going to start a course, so it was a Sunday, and we had booked a houseboat on the Olifants River up in Phalaborwa, going to have a braai. It was nice and hot, having a good time, and I decided I'm just going to dive over the houseboat railing into the river and cool down quickly. As I dove in, my arms were on the side of my body, not in front of me. And as I dove in the middle of this river, I hit something terrifically hard. I actually thought that it was a hippo, but it was a sandbank half a meter under the water. That broke my neck fairly high. They call it a C4-5 break, around about where my finger is. That's where the neck was broken. So what that renders me is a C4-5 quadriplegic, meaning that I can use my bicep, that gives me this curl in my arm, and I can use my shoulder muscle to lift my elbow. But everything else is dead. I can't use it, can't feel it. So very limited movement. So when I broke my neck that day and they kind of got me out of the water, it was quite traumatic, and Phalaborwa doesn't have the greatest hospital, so they needed to casevac me through to Pretoria, put me into intensive care, and after I think it was probably 10 days or so, they got me out of intensive care, and I'm in the high care ward unit, and the surgeon rocks up there with a couple of x-rays, shows me the x-rays, how my neck is broken. He says it's a complete break. There's no recovery from this kind of an injury. And if I hope to get the movement of my arms and my legs back again, I'm setting myself up for disappointment. Those were his words. I remember them very clearly because those words make quite an impact on you when you get told that. I remember going straight into denial. And there's a couple of stages in trauma that you go through. The first stage is denial, and I denied it immediately. I'm a child of God. Healing's going to take place. This is not supposed to happen to me. I remember being stuck in the bed and the doctor asking me this funny question, do you have any questions? I mean, you've just hit me with information that's going to take me years to digest. I can't ask you any questions now. I told him, no, I'm fine. He left. And I remember lying in the bed there going through this intense emotion of wanting to self-destruct. Thinking that life is completely over. How do you cope? My entire existence is what I can do physically. If you take that away from me, I am nothing. You're taking my identity away from me by making me a quadriplegic. I'm speaking to God now. Denied it, thought that as soon as they set me up, because they had to do some neck brace kind of stuff on it, and they were going to put me into the chair. And I told myself that as soon as I sit upright, things are going to change. That's the denial level that I was in. And I remember when they set me up, they didn't counterbalance me, and I fell forward and almost gave myself a blood nose on my knees. And that's when I realized, oh boy, this is the way it is. That kind of oversimplifies it a bit. That's what I was thinking in that moment, and you kind of think that, okay, I've thought it now, I'm not going to think it again. Oh no, you go over this for over and over. You just think you've come to acceptance stage, and then you come back to denial again, where you think, this can't be true. Healing is going to come. And then you get some well-to-do Christians that are really mean without them knowing it, that come and pray for you, and when you don't get healed, tell you that it's your lack of faith. If anybody believes in that kind of theology, let me just tell you now, in my opinion, you're an idiot. I don't like you, and I'd like to bite you. I've had so many people tell me that. Please, folks, if you see somebody that's like really going through a hard time, don't put rocks on his back. So anyway, that was kind of one of the difficulties that I had to go through. But the aspect of losing my identity and having to reinvent myself, boy, that's hard. Going from somebody that's totally independent to becoming completely dependent on somebody else, that is very hard. I know everybody's going through a hard time, and if you're not going through a hard time at the moment, it's in the post. You are going to go through a hard time. So I don't want to make as if my hard time is harder than yours. All I want to say is, actually, all I want to do is I just want to share what I went through, share how I'm coping, share with what keeps me excited, and hopefully that might inspire you. I don't want to be a motivator. I used to be a motivator. I don't want to be a motivator anymore, because trying to motivate you puts a responsibility on me, and I don't want that responsibility. I can't motivate you. I don't want to. I can't. You got to do it yourself. I can maybe be an inspiration, and I'll try to be an inspiration, because being an inspiration has got actually nothing to do with me. The word itself says that inspiration is in spirit, being in God. So hopefully if I'm in God, I will inspire. But then it's God doing the inspiring, not me. So let me tell you how I kind of got through this very dark, difficult time period in my life. I had to reinvent myself. And without having a body to do what I used to do, it was quite difficult to say, well, what do you do if you've only got a mouth? Luckily, my brain was still working all right. I must warn you that I come from German heritage, so I'm either very self-confident or I'm arrogant, but that line is kind of very shady. I was shown a photograph or a calendar with photographs or prints of paintings on. And I thought, well, if somebody else can do that with their mouth, then I can do it as well. So I started painting with my mouth. Well, it first started with sketching, which was horrible. If you right-handed, imagine somebody asking you to draw something with your left hand, and not a circle, something a little bit more complex than a circle and a square. And then times it by 10 if you're doing it with your mouth. So the way it gets done is that you put a stick in your mouth, and at the end of the stick you've got a paintbrush or a pencil, and then it's head movement that you're going to use to draw a picture. I started with that, and I would kind of credit perseverance for that, because it's really the amount of hours that you put in, and you just got to keep on going, although you know that you suck in the beginning, and just keep on going. So Terence, if you can put the first slide on for me, please. That's how it works. Stick in the mouth, the end of the stick you've got a pencil or a paintbrush, and it's head movement that does that. Now I'd like to elaborate a little bit on head movement. If I'm turning my head, it's a radius that gets created at the tip of that pencil. So if you need to draw a straight line, can you understand the complexity of that? You've got a flat surface and you're working in a circle. So if I want to draw a straight line, I need to push out my head, make contact with the paper, and then if I want to draw a straight line, I need to actually pull my head to the right-hand side and back at the same time. And then when I get to the apex, the closest part to me, I need to start pushing it forward again. It is extremely hard. And because it's so far away from your face, it's about here where my finger is, a small movement here creates quite a big movement there. So in the beginning, it just feels completely impossible. You don't believe that you could actually get to painting something that looks like something. So when I tell people that I'm a mouth painter, I imagine that they think I paint stuff like Picasso, which would be easy, by the way, in my opinion. Next slide, please, Terence. So here's one of my paintings that I'm busy with. So that's still the stage where I'm kind of getting to the end product. Next one, please. There's the end product of that one. Now, I need to say that was kind of recent. It was about a year ago, maybe 2. I've been painting now for 11 years, I think I calculated it. So it's kind of a testimony that just keep on going, hey? Winston Churchill said that if you find yourself in hell, keep going. And I really like that, because sometimes we really get into a dark place and we give up because we believe it's going to be like that forever. Let me tell you, that's the lie that makes you quit. If you think it's going to last forever, it doesn't. Nothing lasts forever. We go through seasons and time periods. And when we get into a hard place, you've got to tell yourself that this will not last. It won't. It won't. It never does. Unfortunately, the flip side of that coin is when you're having a great time, that won't last either. If that sounds depressing, it's not. It's just the way it is. We go through seasons and time periods. And nothing lasts. Even this little time that you have, and if you're young and you think you've got a lot of time, it's going to come to pass. I came to the realization that my life is not going to be very long. That's just what happens with quadriplegics because we're in a sitting position the whole time. We don't live very long. And I realized that because my life is not going to be that long, I first went through a depression. I thought, how unfair is that? How cruel is it? But once I accepted it, it's almost as if I became more excited about life. Because the time that I have, I really, really want to use. But I digress a little bit from what I want to say. Let's go to the next slide, please. I just want to show off with some of my paintings. It's all about practice. It's all about keep on going. Just keep on persevering. Don't ever give up. Find something that gives you joy and just keep on pushing. Just keep on going. You've got to get better. I think it's like a scientific equation. Persevere and you've got to get better. Next slide, please. Ian manipulated me to use that photo. Next one, please. I think that's, okay. That's my current one that I've just finished a couple of weeks ago. A couple of days ago, a week ago, that I finished that one. So I'm really proud about it. I really feel that I'm getting good at it now. Thanks. Thank you. When things were really dark and really going hard, I try to go back to what I knew better. The military invited me to go give courses again, but I really couldn't do it. I just felt it completely impossible to just use words and to try to teach martial arts. I'll give you a quick understanding of how difficult it is. A very basic technique, if somebody grabs you with their right hand on your right wrist, what you should do is take your left hand palm, capture their fingers on your right wrist, step to your 11 o'clock position, rotate your pinky over their wrist in a clockwise fashion, and then move back to their 12 o'clock. You got it? Really difficult if you're limited to just words. So eventually I had to give up. It just wasn't working. But there were failed attempts at trying to make it work. And I think failed attempts are just part of life. I know they suck. They really demoralize you, but it's just a part of life. You have to go through failed attempts. They make you stronger. They make you realize which way to go. As soon as, the faster you can just accept that failure is part of life, it just makes life easier. Completely secular thing that I would like to tell you is that there's a theory called the Elliott wave theory. And in a very nutshell explanation of this theory is that life in general moves forward by 5 waves and moves back by 3. 5 forward, 3 back. Now, when I understood that and I took ownership of that theory and I said, wow, I see that in my life so often. where there's a season where I just can't do things wrong. Whatever I touch just works. And then there's times where things just don't work my way at all. There's no rhythm or rhyme. It's just not working. And those time periods, I want to give up. It feels like it's so hard. It feels like it's going to be like this forever. It's not like this forever. There are seasons. And if that theory holds any value to you, to me it did, that when things are not working the way I want them to work, I don't see it as failure anymore. I see it as that's the way it works. These are my 3 waves that I'm now going backwards. That makes it feel like I'm going backwards, but it's part of moving forward. Forward, pull back a little bit like the waves do, move forward again. I think if you're a Christian and a believer, there is not a thing like failure unless you want it. Unless you keep claiming it on yourself and professing it on yourself, I don't think you can fail. Which brings me to my next point. I heard Jim Carrey. Anybody know Jim Carrey? He's a comedian and actor. Jim Carrey was having a talk, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said he wishes that everybody could have their fame and their success and the popularity that they desire, so that they would realize that that's not what life's about. Isn't that beautiful? I can so relate with that. Haven't you had it where you desire something so much, and when you get it, it's almost like an anticlimax? Your expectation and your desire for it was so great. And then you get it, and it's like, this is not really what I thought it was going to be. We all want success, and we've got a vision of what success is supposed to be. But is it correct? When I came to the acceptance that this is all I am, I'm a useless body. Well, not that useless, but, I can't run and jump and throw people around. So with this limited physical body, I'm actually I'm just a head. That's what I am. And with that limitation, when I came to the acceptance that, all right, this is all I am, the disappointment left me. I started reevaluating what success actually is. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be the same for you, but I reckon we're probably all kind of the same. Success to me is being able to suck the marrow out of life and to see the opportunities that are all around me and to take them. Not to be defeated, not to be scared. That to me is success. That is what I'm striving for. The next slide, please. I've got good friends. I've got great support systems. Great opportunity to say thank you to Elsa, be my caregiver over here. She really helps to make things possible for me. I cherish the people that are dear to me in life. I've come to a quirky conclusion. I reserve my best manners for the people that I love. It's funny how we kind of have that the wrong way around, don't we? You put your best foot forward to strangers that haven't even influenced you. weird. So I've got real good friends. I latch onto life. I've got my goals and my targets. I want to experience life. And I recently did a microlight flight in a plane. It's excellent. I love it. I love the feeling of being in a motorbike that flies. Next slide, please. This was one of my best experiences that I did recently. I climbed into a very small plane that actually works. Next slide, please. And jumped out. That was so much fun. I don't know how many people told me, oh, please don't do it. The hardest thing of making this thing work was to get a doctor's note. That was the logistical nightmare that I had. Next slide, please. Jumping out of that plane was excellent fun. Having that absolute terror when you jump out of the aeroplane was so refreshing. I can't remember when last I was that scared. I think we should all get scared every now and again. I think it should be like trauma counseling. Find out what really makes you scared and do that. Next one, please. The reason why I'm opening my mouth is not because I'm screaming, but because I can feel the wind better. I can't feel it on the rest of my body. I only feel it on my neck and on my head. So I kind of opened my mouth to kind of get that feeling of the wind in my mouth. The photo didn't capture it, but every now and again, your lips expand and you feel like Louis Armstrong on a trumpet. Next one. That was a landing. Great fun. I found that everything kind of stopped in the sense of everybody's busy on the floor doing their own thing. And as soon as I came in for my landing, everybody stopped to look and see the quadriplegic coming down from the sky. And I realized that it's kind of quite easy to be an inspiration. All you got to do is kind of make the hard stuff look easy. And everybody kind of looks and reckons, wow, if he can do it, why can't I? I think we all can be an inspiration. The conclusion that I would like to make to this talk is that I feel that life is all about attitude. If we know that we're going to go through hard times and we accept that hard times are there, hard times are going to make us grow, make us stronger, make us more effective. If we accept that, then your attitude is right and all of a sudden life just becomes a whole lot easier. If you've got an attitude of, I'm not scared, why should I be scared? All of a sudden doors open. If you've got an attitude of, I'm just not going to give up. Whatever comes my way, I'm just not going to give up. Everybody else looks at you and reckons you're quite amazing, but it's just an attitude of not giving up. Check your attitudes. Life is hard, but who cares? I reckon you can conquer. Thanks for your time.
Anyone got a question? You can ask anything with detail. In fact, he respects that. Anything that's on your heart. How many times you been skydiving, Dit?
Second time.
And the first time did it go all hunky? The first time did it go all hunky dory? Hey?
Compression fractures on the landing.
Why the hell did you do it again then?
To get it right.
And often what happens is something goes wrong, and we think, oh, this is not for me, I'll never try it again. If I have to chop off your toe, will you feel it?
No.
How will you know that something's wrong?
I'll start getting pain symptoms in the sense of, they call it dysreflexia. So my blood pressure will rise, I'll start sweating, I'll get a headache. But all these, there's one symptom for anything. So whether I've got a bladder infection, or I'm creating a bed sore by sitting on the wrong surface, or a puppy is chewing off my big toenail, I get one symptom to show me something's wrong.
Hang on a sec.
Hi, Dieter.
Hi.
I want to know, did you ever suffer from depression?
I would say I still suffer from depression.
Okay.
It was really bad the first 2 years because you're still going through that trauma kind of thing. Sometimes life just kind of has a line of events that happen, and I don't care how strong you are, if the stimulus is right, you'll become depressed. So I'm constantly dealing with my quadriplegia. I'm constantly dealing with my limitations. The frustrations are there. I recognize when I'm in a depression because of my thought patterns, my self-speech.
How do you handle it?
Sometimes I whip myself in the sense of, none of this. You're not what you're thinking. So I kind of have an internal argument happening. My self-speech, my audience of judges, whatever you want to call them.
Your self-speech is becoming negative.
Say again?
Is your self-speech becoming negative?
Yes, yeah. Sometimes I call them my toothless judges.
Yeah, I know.
They tell me you can't do it. See. Sometimes I have this one-liner that says, how long do you persevere before you get branded a fool? How's that for negative? Which kind of makes you want to give up. But I'm really convinced, I'm totally convinced that it doesn't last. So I know that I'm going to walk through it. And the only asset that I have, because my bank account doesn't look good, the asset that I do have is that I persevere. I tell myself that I just won't give up. Whether it's hard-headedness or whatever it is, but it's like this, I put my head down and I grind. There's some evenings where I lie and I just kriegen. I don't know what the English word for that is. Where I will just, I will just give that moaning sound and just try to get it out of me. And then tomorrow is another day, and then we try again. And it might be 37 days in a row where it's difficult. Especially, I might get and I've had it before. How long was I sick with that sickness that we just couldn't figure out? It was saying like 8 months. Hey? For 8 months, I was sweating, physically sweating, about 4 liters a day. I was going through spasms that I couldn't give a proper conversation. It was like that. For 8 months, people, do you know how long that is? But if it's going to be 8 months, then it's going to be 8 months.
And tell me, did it help you in any way if somebody told you, just get over it?
Now, if they told it to me like that, I'd say, let me tell you a secret, and bite their ear. If somebody had to ask me to sum up your faith for me, I would say that my first commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and all your strength. Second commandment or second faith statement would be love your neighbor like you love yourself. Whoa! How do I love myself? I've really had to almost have a mantra where I keep telling myself, I love myself. I love myself because the family I come from is not very loving. So I had to kind of get that in, but this is the important part that I want to tell you. The third and last faith statement in my constitution is St. Francis of Assisi told his disciples, go out and preach the gospel, and if you have to, use words. So I try to talk as little as possible, especially when I'm in that frame of mind. I just kind of close shutters because the stuff that's going to come out now shouldn't come out, I believe. So if somebody tells me, just get over it, I'm sure if we put a CCTV in his house, we'll check how he handles hard times. You can't say that if you've suffered real hard times, you don't tell people, just get over it. We all suffer the same emotions. It's just the stimulus that changes. That's the only thing that's different. Thanks for your questions. Those were good, hey?
Dieter, I want to ask you, since the accident happened and you've been in hospital for so long, did you ever question God? God, why me? And how did you handle that situation of acceptance that God's got a reason why it happened with you?
The stages of trauma are denial, anger, negotiation, depression, and acceptance. You want to get to acceptance. You talking about did you question God? Oh yeah, that happens during anger, denial too. But anger is the big one, where why has this happened to me? That would be a typical anger kind of question. But then you get to negotiation stage, which is kind of humorous in hindsight, where you say, I'll go to church more. Just give me one hand. It's kind of funny how my standards have dropped. In the beginning I was wanting healing. It kind of went down to just one hand. I'm at the stage now where I envy paraplegics. They're going through a depression and I'm thinking, oh God, I'd love that. Definitely went through those stages. Right after that surgeon told me that if you have any expectancy of using your limbs again, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. I remember having this feeling of I'm going to self-destruct, but at the same time having this clear revelation that I need to put my best foot forward. And my best foot forward might sound manipulative to you. No, it's not. My best foot forward means it feels like I want to explode, go mad, and break stuff around me, even if it's verbal. But then knowing that I should be running to God, not away from God. I don't know how you experience your inner life, but to me, truth is not a secret. You know what to do. Whether you do it, that becomes challenging. But knowing what to do, to me, is kind of, it's in there. It's the Holy Spirit telling you, whichever terminology you want to use for this. But you kind of know what you need to do. That said, there's often times where I swore at God. And it kind of made me feel guilty maybe afterwards once the pressure was kind of off me again. And then I would think, oh boy, I'm going to hell for that one. But then I would also realize that Psalms, which is accredited to David, is 2/3 lamentations. In basic English, is bitching. So you're allowed to be real with God, man. When you're trying to put forward a front of being so in control of everything and being happy all the time, oh man, that's a difficult load. It's not sustainable. You can't sustain that falseness. So be real. And unfortunately, a whole lot of Christians kind of condemned me for being real. It's funny how you kind of get hurt by your family the most, because you kind of think that Christians would kind of accept you in the difficult times that you're going through, but there's a lot of factions of Christians. You know, there's some that like really strongly believe that if things are going bad, there must be a reason and you're guilty for it. And I think that is such a false teaching. And that's hurt me so many times as being like an anchor at times where it really made me feel like they're drowning me. So yes, there were times that I ran away, but I always kind of turned around and came back. There were times that I'm very embarrassed with how I spoke to God. But I realize now in hindsight and in a little bit more wisdom that that doesn't intimidate God at all. I mean, come on, how small is your God? If you think that he's not going to take out the whip because you used a cuss word. In my inner life, that doesn't do nothing to him. I think he giggled. He's so stupid. Look at him go.
On tape. Hi, if you could have, at that when it happened, would you have taken your life?
Yeah. I think I've considered suicide at least 10,000 times. At least. There's been times where I've had the front wheel of my wheelchair on the edge of a swimming pool. Oh yeah. There's times when I've been so frustrated that I've actually put my wrist in my mouth and started gnawing on it. So it's been that dark, and it's been that close. Do I feel embarrassed about it? No, because I've wrestled with death so much that I do not fear it at all. This big thing about death, and you know that it's eventually going to end, and all those kind of pessimistic thoughts, I've wrestled with that so often that big, black, scary death is a midget in a pink leotard.
You saved my life today.